There is a new daily email newsletter launching called One Anti-Racist Action a Day. It was created by Letitia Thomas of OnRamp.io and Writespeak Code, and Amy Wabowo of Bubble Sort Zines. The goal of the newsletter is to give people one anti-racist action to accomplish per day to keep the conversations and actions going in the fight against systemic racism. I'm excited to see something like this starting, especially by two women who have both done so much in their careers for representation and equality in tech, and I encourage you to sign up and be a part of it. Yep. I'm going to solder to some paper. Probably like, Liz, that's a terrible idea. It might be, but I'm going to try it. I do have, standing by, a glass of water. So, if any emergencies arise, we can take care of it. I'm also above a silicone mat. So, let's see. So, why a paper circuit? Well, ever since I started getting into designing PCBs, even just super casually, I'd been looking for a way to test the layout of the board and the traces before sending it off to fab. I hate having a PCB come back with a mistake on it that in some cases makes it unusable. It's a waste of time, it's a waste of money, and I think probably most importantly, it's a waste of materials. And there's so many like really toxic chemicals used in PCB fab, like that's always on my mind. But really, what are the options to test? I mean, there are mills, and they're really awesome, but they're super expensive. However, I'd say in most cases worth the money with the engineering involved in manufacturing it and everything like that. And they're also really loud. Like, I'm pretty sure if I ran a mill in my apartment, I would get more noise complaints than I already do about my music that I play. And then, I mean, you can etch your own boards at home, sure. But again, you have these caustic, terrible chemicals that personally I don't feel comfortable storing in, again, the apartment. So this eventually led me to this papercraft experiment. Recently I invested in a Cricut with a family member, kind of like a timeshare situation, mainly with the idea to use it for fabric and quilting, things like that, things I don't talk about on this channel. But then Adafruit got these sticker copper sheets in, and literally I was watching Ask an Engineer. They did the new news, they showed them, and my brain went, whoa, could you, in theory, take this copper sheet, put it into the Cricut, and have it cut out the traces of your PCB from like Eagle, and you know test out your circuit or make totally new circuits, or could that happen? And the answer is yes. Yes, you totally could. The method I used for this was to cut the board outline out on a piece of cardstock, and also cut the component holes as well, because it's a through-hole circuit. That's what this particular design was. And then I used a marker to draw the traces onto that same piece of cardstock. And the reason why I did that was with the copper, I cut just the traces out, and then I placed the copper onto the cardstock into the drawn traces outline. Not unlike putting decals on a Barbie accessory. I don't know how they are now, but in the 90s, all those graphics were decals, and you had to put them on just right, or else it didn't look anything like the box, and that was very disappointing. This went a lot smoother than that, but I like to think that the Barbie stuff prepared me for this moment. And that really leads us to this soldering here, on paper. Which ironically, on paper, sounds like a terrible idea. Soldering on paper. I can already hear you screaming in the comments. But as you can see, no fire. Everything's fine. I thought it had a chance of being okay because in high school, I had some friends that would do kind of like zine stuff or funky kind of poetry things where they'd take a lighter and distress the paper by it would get this kind of singed look and look aged, like sepia tone, and the paper wouldn't catch with a lighter going back and forth on it. So I imagined that being really quick with my iron and really conscious of where I was aiming at, that it would be okay. And that luckily ended up being correct. And since I'm soldering on like pure copper here, the solder is flowing super great. It was probably the easiest soldering experience I've ever had in my entire life, which is ironic because I was scared. I was very scared. However, will the LED blink? Yes, the LED blinks. The circuit is sound. This is actually my favorite blinking LED circuit, mainly because it's like super simple and uses really common components. It's just two N2222 transistors, two 10 UF capacitors, two 220K ohm resistors, one 100K ohm resistor, and then one 470 ohm resistor, and of course the LED. You remember the Ghost project back in the fall? I actually made some PCBs with the circuit on it, and I used two of those PCBs for the mini ghosts to blink their eyes. So there's that. So this experiment worked on a few levels. First of all, no fires. That's always a good day. Does this mean that you shouldn't have mad respect for the fact that you are soldering on paper? No, you need to respect that. You need to be super careful and cautious. You want to have some sort of extinguishing equipment near you, whether it be as primal as a cup of water, as I elected, or a fire extinguisher, something. You need to be prepared, and you do this at your own risk, my friend. You need to be cautious here, okay? Second, the circuit works reliably, which is great. So that means that the export from Eagle went through all of its iterations into the Cricut design space and worked just fine. That has some real potential. So I definitely want to experiment more with this whole concept. I want to try swapping in acrylic in place of the paper. I think that could be cool. I want to try different types of circuits, experiment with different components, maybe some surface mount stuff. And I'd also like to try shrinking things down a bit. I went with super chunky, delicious traces for this one because I didn't know how this was going to work. I had no idea, so I figured might as well make them nice and fat, get them on there, and see what happens. A little bit easier than doing some really teensy tiny stuff. And I think also that worked well since I was placing them by hand. I think with some transfer paper, we could go smaller and we could do maybe even some more intricate layout stuff. When I was redoing the circuit in Eagle, I was kind of keeping all that in mind, like I'm going to have to place these by hand, they're going to have to be cut out without too much finagling, etc., etc. Additionally, have you heard of Chibitronics? I had. I actually owned their Chibi scope, which is this tiny, little, really basic scope for people like me that don't have a lot of desk space or money for that sort of actual oscilloscope. And it works. I've used it to debug things, so don't knock it. But what I didn't realize, I knew they sold like kind of paper circuit stuff, but you should look at their feeds, people, because there's a whole world out there, okay, where these people are making some art, like real art. Like I aspire to this idea that they have put out in the world. These beautiful, intricate, creative, mechanical paper circuits. It's mind-blowing. You've got to look at it. I'm without words. It's beyond Chibitronics. You've got to look at it. It's beautiful. But that's going to do it for this video. In these trying times, I think it's a great opportunity to take chances, make mistakes, experiment with new materials, new techniques in relation to your everyday art and crafting and creation. Just expand your horizons. That's what I'm trying to do with this project. It was a total experiment, but I loved it, and it kind of realigned your brain and gets some nice dopamine going, which in these trying times we could all use a little bit extra of. You know. Check out Chibitronics. Just joyful, beautiful art with blinking lights. Who doesn't love that? They're doing amazing stuff, you know? And until next time, this is my Blitz City DIY.